Their preferred option is a global crypto market, the beast currency, like Bill Gates is trying to push forward. That will be a bio-tied universal basic income, because they know that this whole entire global paradigm is now moving towards AI, quantum computing, and robots, which would leave a lot of people out of jobs permanently. And their only offering is more centralization of power, more technocratical control, and most definitely eugenics somewhere along the line, if not outright generational enslavement and impoverishment, all while trying to get away and fly their rockets to the Mars.
Powell, jobless rate is better than expected, recovery to take a long time. Wait a second, everything is on the path of a recovery, we got that V-shape happening, but recovery is going to take a long time. How can we be both a V-shaped recovery and a recovery that takes a long time? The number of people in the US seeing permanent job losses rose by about 500,000 to 3.4 million. That's the highest level since 2013. It points to an ongoing business closure, bankruptcy, and investment cuts around the country. Notice where that number is going. It is spiking up, just as it did back in the years before. This is the financial crisis time frame. This is what we are seeing today, and it's the exact same pattern. Currently 3.4 million. It will not stop. You know what's going to happen with retail. We can see that trend. Of course, here is the line as it goes, and there is some questions as to where it's heading, but come on, we have a very, very good idea. And if you look at those in the hospitality industry and other types of businesses that are surely going to close down, this permanent job loss scenario will be affecting millions and millions more. These people will not be able to pay their bills. They are going to depend on the government. That's going to increase the debt. That's going to make the deficit worse. We are going to have problems with evictions. We are going to look at so many people that simply do not have the money to afford basic essentials. That puts a burden on the economy as a whole. I think I made it pretty clear, but this is what we have to see in the coming months.
You shouldn't be embarrassed by your wealth. This contempt for money is just another trick of the rich to keep the poor without it.
Well, I suppose the one time when a single mother might want to own gold compared to anything else is if she faced conditions like a Jew in Vienna in 1939. There are conditions you can imagine where some form of transportable wealth would be useful compared to anything else. But absent those extreme conditions, I think it's for the birds. Now, silver. It's hard to think of anything other than fleeing the country.
Right.
Right.
Where do you put your money? What's the number one conviction trade right now for you, 2020?
Silver.
Silver.
How should I feel? Now I stand here waiting.
Let's look at a morning must-read off his important essay on the collapse of the U.S. dollar. America's savings current account problems are about to come into play with a vengeance. The rest of the world is starting to look less bad. A weaker dollar, it would boost U.S. competitiveness, but only for a while. Notwithstanding the hubris of American exceptionalism, no leading nation has ever devalued its way to sustain prosperity. Stephen Roach, could it be that big of a dollar move where we move from depreciation to a consideration of devaluation?
Well, Tom, the problem with the U.S. and its saving current account balances is that they were already setting us up for a problem before the pandemic hit. The net national savings rate, which is the broadest measure of domestic saving, is the savings of businesses, households, and the government sector adjusted for depreciation, was at 1.4% of national income in the first quarter of 2020. And the average, 45-year average from 1960 to 2005 was 7. So we were at the the lower end of an acceptable bound, and then we have introduced this massive relief package, which is going to blow our budget deficits higher than we've ever seen, and take debt to GDP ratios well above those which were evident in the end of World War II. So I look at that and I say, okay, with deficits up, with debt up, with savings likely to go sharply into negative territory, which is going to be even worse than it was during the global financial crisis, the current account is probably going to exceed its prior record of minus 6.3% of GDP in 2005, and currencies are designed to cushion the blow of an exploding current account in the context of weak domestic savings. So I think a dollar decline is inevitable.
What you're hearing here, folks, is textbook Stephen Roach. I mean, this is why the guy became acclaimed at Morgan Stanley. Stephen, our audience may not be able to articulate net national savings, but they know a free lunch when they see it. When do we actually pay for this debt buildup?
Well, right now, of course, nobody worries about deficits and debt because interest rates are close to zero, and so the cost of servicing the debt, the interest payments that the U.S. Treasury has to make are de minimis. But the question is, Tom, can we count on interest rates to stay at zero in perpetuity? And that comes back to things like inflation and relative risk premia, and in a